Hi everyone and welcome to SWPL My Story, and today I'm delighted to tell you that we're joined by Spartans legend Rachel Harrison. How are you, Rachel?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
No, not at all, and I'm thankful for you taking the time to speak to us today. Obviously a huge decision for yourself after such a long and illustrious career to decide to hang up the gloves. So is it sunk in yet? Are you enjoying that little bit of freedom?
I don't think it's 100% sunk in yet. Obviously, with the announcement going out, it makes it a little bit more real. But yeah, I've been enjoying some free time, so we'll see how it goes over the next couple of weeks.
No, that's great. So I just want to kind of reflect on your career and hear it from yourself and the highs and the lows and the challenges. And obviously, over the period that your career was over, there's such a change as there has been in the game. So just take us back, just rhyming off a few stats for you. So over a couple of stints at Spartans, it was 12 years accumulated, 245 appearances. So when you first stepped between the sticks at Spartans, they were a real force. The game was really driving on at that point. So how do you look back on that first 5 years in comparison to the years that then preceded that?
Yeah, like the first 5 years, I guess, we were challenging really high up the table at that point, and we had some really strong international players at that time. And there was a couple of seasons that we finished like second or third. And we had a run 3 seasons where we played 5 cup finals. So we had some really, really good times. Unfortunately, we didn't win any of those cup finals, but it's getting there. That's the main part. So it was a very different team. The league was very different back then, so it presented different challenges. But it took me a while to actually break into the team. And then over the course of the 5 years, obviously, I broke into the team and played a few games. So those were probably five of the best years. So yeah, it was a really good time.
No, as you say, the Spartans team was littered with international players. They were up there challenging. And I think it's not reflecting badly on Spartans, but it's just showing the strength in the league now, and it can only be looked at as a positive from a collective point of view. Obviously, you're heavily invested in Spartans. You'd like to see them higher up the table than they are at the moment, but it just goes to show that the challenge is getting greater all the time.
Yeah, I think, we could train 3 days a week back then, and some teams were only training once, twice a week, and everybody could compete. Whereas now, obviously, the league's a lot more professional. There's full-time teams, there's full-time players, and that presents different challenges in itself to teams like Spartans, who are trying to obviously get to that elite level. So yeah, the game has come on so much, and it's great to see. But it does present a different set of challenges to certain teams. So.
So after your first stint at Spartans, you had opportunities to go abroad, and we were just chatting before we came on there. It's life changing for players to get those opportunities, and it'd be great to see more players representing around Europe. But for yourself, your first stop was Italy. So how was that experience for you? Just if you can reflect on that a little.
Yeah, it was great. Honestly, I had the best year. Footballing wise, brilliant. Team wise, brilliant. We played Champions League, had 2 cup finals that year as well. I think I probably underestimated how hard it was going to be going to a country that English wasn't their first language. I stood on that training pitch with my first training session in 40-degree heat, and I didn't know left, right, push, drop, man on. I didn't know anything. And I was stood there so out of my comfort zone, and I thought, what am I doing here? Like, first of all, it's 40 degrees. Second of all, I can't speak like a word of Italian. But you have to adapt. And I think putting yourself, like, I put myself in that situation, and I think a lot of people thought that I wouldn't stick it out, but it turned out probably it was the best decision I ever made was is to go away and challenge yourself against different footballing teams. Italian teams play very different to Scottish teams. There was a lot of playing from the back, but like okay, it's a bit more prominent in Scotland now, but back then in 2015, it was very. We had some honestly unreal players, and it was just such a good experience for me to bring back to Scotland as well.
So you obviously got a taste for playing abroad, and you had your year in Italy, and you were on the move again, this time to Denmark. So how would you compare the two? You said it was obviously a challenge, just the language barrier for starters, but the style of play. but obviously something that you really enjoyed and you wanted to experience more of that, so it saw you on the move again.
Yeah, Denmark was a bit easier because everybody spoke English, so that made life a little bit easier. We had a lot of international players, and I remember getting there, and Tamires, she was the left back, had just come back from the Olympics, so like the team was filled with superstars, and again, I was like completely starstruck going into training like the first time. And that was different. It was very different, going from a big Italian city into a small Danish town. So the lifestyle was very different as well. But again, we played Champions League, and that season we got to the quarterfinals and got put out by Man City. So like that in itself, like what an experience. Yeah, another unbelievable year.
So after your stint abroad, was there a reason that you wanted to come back to Scotland? I would assume playing those 2 years away, you would have had other offers, whether it was at the clubs that you were already at or elsewhere. But there was probably only one destination for you if you did choose to return to Scotland. Whether you wanted to go to Spartans or not, you probably wouldn't have been allowed to go anywhere else. But how was that? Even though it was only a 2 year period away, it was a massive transitional time for the Scottish game. So, what were the differences when you came back? Did it feel a lot more professional?
Yeah, I think definitely when I came back, the game in Scotland was moving more towards that professional direction. There was a lot more international players that had come into the league, from different countries and that played in different leagues. So we're then presenting us with different challenges as players and coaches. But um, yeah, I came back to Scotland and it was only supposed to be a stopgap. Arthur Cummings, who was actually the number one at Spartans when I came back, was obviously injured. And I came back to get some game, like a bit more frequent game time before the Euros. So then and then that was it. I ended up being back at Spartans for another 6, 7 years. So yeah, I still wouldn't have done it differently, but yeah.
So when you came back and things off the field were moving on, and you started to get into coaching, was that something that you enjoyed and you seen it from a different perspective, as in you've gained a lot of experience, whether at home and abroad, and something you felt that you could pass on to the next generation of players coming through?
Yeah, I think like definitely, I never wanted to be a coach. It was never what I wanted to do. I never had any interest in coaching, and then I went on my goalkeeping B license, and then I done some of like the lower kind of outfield ones, coaching courses as well. And I thought you're giving something back, and you touched on it before we came on. It's a different kind of satisfaction to playing. You're still getting that buzz from doing it, um, and yeah, like from taking all those playing experiences, I do feel like I've got something to help like the younger kids with now as well, moving on. So yeah, absolutely.
And then obviously going into this season, it's been a difficult period, it has to be said, for Spartans, and a lot of change, obviously, with Debbie stepping down as well. It was always going to be a challenge, but from the point of view of the being in that squad and being a senior player and trying to help bring that squad on, was there a turning point for you that you felt that this is probably the right time for me to hang up the gloves?
Yeah, I think I've thought about it. I've threatened to retire for about 4 years now, and I just was never at the right point in my life to do it. I still had that buzz to be better and to win, and I'll never lose that, and I'll always have that. But because the league's becoming a lot more competitive, and we've got all these young players coming through, and obviously like Alicia Yates is an unbelievable goalkeeper as well. I felt like I was at a time now where it was fine for me to step away, and the club's in a really good position having Alicia there. So I felt that I could kind of take that step back now. And don't get me wrong, it's been a really difficult decision. And there are still days where I think, oh, I want to play, like I want to go back and play, but ultimately it was the right decision for me at this point in my life. So yeah.
So, as we said before as well, you've not been allowed to just walk away. No sooner had your announcement that your retirement came out, Spartans announced that you were going to be overseeing the national performance girls in the goalkeeping section. So, we've already touched on your coaching, but the fact that it's at Spartans as well, club that's close to your heart and something that you want to make a difference with.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I didn't really have that many people to look up to when I was a kid in terms of like goalkeepers. And if I can inspire one person to want to be a goalkeeper, then I'm happy with that. And I think now I'm ready to try and help develop the next generation. There's like, unless you're a goalkeeper, you don't know what it's like to play in goals. And I think like providing them with the right tools to kind of progress as well. It's really important to me, and especially at a club that means so much to me, and it's been a massive part of my life. I want to like help those girls get to SWPL one level. I want to help them get into the first team and make national teams and that sort of thing. So I'm really driven to make a difference at a club that's special to me.
That's great, Rachel. And again, I just want to congratulate you on such a fantastic career. And bowing out in your own terms is the perfect way to go.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us today, Rachel. And thanks everyone for joining us on SWPL My Story.